Act 1, Scene 1, we have Origins of Life, where we see our 5 featured elements. We have hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Josh, can you describe the qualities of each of those elements and how each one has a role in our lives?
So if we start with hydrogen, because everything starts with hydrogen. It's the most abundant element of the universe. It's kind of everywhere. So it is normally a gas that's pretty reactive, flammable, and all that. But it's being the smallest and most abundant element, you kind of do find it everywhere. And in organic chemistry, you find it kind of studying all molecules. So usually, like an organic chemist doesn't even bother drawing them all. So they'll draw a molecule structure and they'll only focus on the heavier elements, and you just kind of assume that the hydrogens are all there. So it's kind of this unspoken presence all the time. But it's also, of course, our personal interaction with it is probably with it when it's exerting its most influence is probably with acidity. So of course, when hydrogens move from one molecule to another, they get ionized. It's happening in water. You'll have an acid, or the lack of them, you'll have a base, and so we'll have that kind of effect. Oxygen, of course, is the air we breathe. And the reason that it's important for life is because of its properties. It's highly reactive, and so it can do all kinds of different chemistry. And so we need to breathe it in to conduct this chemistry and combine with other elements. Carbon is really forming the structure of everything. So it's really kind of the basis for all organic. It is the basis for all organic chemistry. All the small molecules, all the macromolecules, they're all built on a carbon framework with a few elements that attached here and there, and then hydrogens kind of spread all over to fill things out. Nitrogen is kind of in the middle between oxygen and carbon, like it is in the periodic table. So it's got partly a structural role and partly a reactive role, so it plays an important part there. And then phosphorus, oh my gosh, where do I start? The phosphorus, I think that in terms of our lives, phosphorus is, we think of that in terms of the energy currency of the cell. So ATP, you have ATP, you have 3 phosphates, and then when one phosphate splits off, that releases some energy in the cell, and then your mitochondria put it back together to basically print new energy money, and so you can continue your biological life, and so that's kind of where we start. We have all these different elements, and then they're going to combine into different compounds that actually make up living things.
And then Tiffany, it's been your job to, essentially bring these elements to life through dance. So can you talk a little bit of your process on how you created these movements for each of the dancers that are unique to the qualities of each element?
Very much was thinking of how these elements would look. What would that look like? So hydrogen being very abundant, and to me being very fluid. You'll notice a lot of the movements that come from hydrogen have a lot of ebb and flow to them. Oxygen being, the air that we breathe. So everything that oxygen is doing is very open and trying to create that air quality around. And then with carbon, Josh talks a lot about it being the base and being part of all organic. So for me, as a dancer, I thought about the core and how you, as a dancer, are taught to use your core. And so I wanted a lot of those movements to be very grounded and very, very strong. And then with nitrogen, partially being structure based and partially being reactive, I cast one of our ballerinas as this piece or as this character, because I feel like ballet is very much that. It can be very structured, but then also very reactive. And that's part of your job as a ballet dancer, is you're doing all this very intricate, crazy work, but then it looks very effortless and very fluid on top. And then phosphorus, all about the energy, not just energy in the legs, but energy in the arms, and energy traveling, and energy standing still. And then two, how all of the elements start functioning together because of all of this, great energy that phosphorus is creating.
And now we would like to feature company member Lola Schaefer in a rehearsal video for Origins of Life. Lola chose this selection, which includes her oxygen solo and duet with hydrogen, because, and I'm quoting her, "The movement is so spacious. Oxygen is a gas, and so it's kind of all-encompassing. It doesn't apologize for taking up space, and it's so vital. We would never want oxygen to shrink away. So to me, it symbolizes being your fullest self." And the reason I love the duet portion as well is because it shows us that you can continue to be your fullest self, taking up all your space unapologetically, and still have synergistic relationships with the other part can arrive in fullness too. Not one has to shrink, and it still works exactly as it should. So scene 2 is heritage. Tiffany, your approach to this piece highlights one of my favorite things about you, not only as a choreographer, but also just as a person. And that's your ability to create personal connections with our dancers. So how do you approach doing a piece like Heritage, which calls for your dances to be a little more vulnerable? You know, we're kind of exploring their history, their personal history with their family and their DNA.
For me, I wanted to kind of make sure that the individual was being seen. And so I had the dancers do a small, I would say, improvisational exercise where they came up with 7 to 10 movements that represented themselves and their background. And I also did the same thing for myself.
Featured here are Hannah Fujisaki on keyboard and Rebecca Dotzel on cello, each performing a selection from Heritage. Scene 3, which is protein. Josh, I know you've mentioned sort of in passing that protein is sort of your favorite piece because Tiffany and the dancers have perfectly captured the essence of a protein structure. Can you walk us through that structure and sort of how it moves?
Yeah, so this was really interesting because we had been talking about what to do to get to capture this major class of molecules. You know, the proteins, it's like in your hair and in your skin, and so it seems like something that we needed to address. And I was kind of struggling with it because I was trying
because I was gonna originally set it like in a beauty shop or something, but then I thought this is way too cheesy. So I was struggling as well. So I was like, Josh, I need your help.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of how, like, I was still sort of stuck in a mode where I was thinking about the representation of individual elements very literally. So somebody would be a hydrogen, somebody would be a nitrogen, somebody would be an oxygen, and all that. And the thing is, like, a protein is a macromolecule. It's got hundreds, thousands of atoms in it, and we're not going to be able to capture that. You know, we're not C.B. DeMille, and we don't have any cast of thousands here. So I just got to thinking about what aspects, what properties of proteins would be something that we could use. And I was thinking, well, proteins are a polymer, and so this is a concept that people might appreciate. So the protein polymer is made where you have some elements combined to form a compound of an amino acid, and then you have one amino acid that gets linked to another amino acid, and that gets linked to another amino acid, that gets linked to another, and then these all form a long chain, and then the chain folds up on itself and to form a well-defined structure. And this is actually something I got to thinking about, and I was talking with Tiffany about that you know, when you talk to biochemists and biophysicists and molecular biologists, we all talk about structure-function relationships. It's kind of something that's just kind of everyday conversation, is talk about protein structure and function relationships. Like, how does like the particular fold, when that protein polymer folds up, it'll form a unique structure, but it's also sort of dynamic. So it's got a particular structure that kind of moves around a little bit, and then that structure is what defines its function, because it'll say accept a couple of molecules, and then it catalyzes a reaction where the two molecules come together, and then they go off as linked, or you have another molecule that comes in, and then the protein will cut it, and then it goes off as two molecules. So I thought, well, let's see what we can do, you know, with this whole notion of these amino acids coming together to form a polymer that then kind of all fold up on one another. They're always in contact, but they're also always moving in this dynamic way, because the protein dynamics is also very important to their function. That sometimes some of them are very rigid, some of them are very flexible, some of them are not supposed to have any structure at all. And so, so that's very interesting. And so once we got into that, you know, we started doing that, and then Tiffany went off and did something magical with the dancers, and came back with this thing. It was like, oh my God, this looks so familiar. This is exactly what proteins look like if you look at the, say, a molecular dynamic simulation.
And now, a clip of our violin player, Victoria Gabrielson, playing a selection from Protein. Shayna Bjerke started composing the music for Elemental back in July of 2019. We are shining the spotlight on her today. Here are a few videos highlighting her experience with the project.
Composing the music for the ballet Elemental has been so rewarding and challenging all at the same time. First of all, growing up, science was not my forte, so taking on this project has been really cool. It's been really fun to work with Josh, the scientist, and hear all he has to say, and then listening to Tiffany and her interpretation, while also being able to put my spin on it and put it into the music. I think one of my favorite movements has probably been Protein, because that was the hardest one to start. I probably started it over and deleted it maybe 5 to 6 times. So from where it started to where it ended was just the biggest transformation for me. Some other movements that I love, Water is just beautiful. Arsenic just has some really cool sound effects. Earth Not Seen is just, again, a really intense and beautiful piece. I think that there is a little bit of something for everyone. So I really hope you check out Elemental.
Thank you all so much for watching our sneak peeks today. We really appreciate your continued support, and we will be seeing you in the theater soon for the premiere of Elemental. Until then, stay tuned for updates and more videos. And if you're able, we would love you to consider making a donation to Lawson Dance Theatre. There are links to PayPal and our GoFundMe campaign on the website, www.tiffanylawsondance.com. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay compassionate. Cheers.